So, we didn't really do much of anything last episode.
I'm sort of sad that I got so excited over what was ultimately a grinding episode.
That's okay, but that's what Y2K is all about, doing nothing.
Yeah, I think we did debate this briefly, I think, where I said Y2K is really just about mediocrity.
Well, I mean, there are other things in this game besides grinding. I mean, if you wanna play a real grind fest of a game, well, I remember a lot of the Final Fantasies were like that. I'd say Disgaea is probably the worst offender.
Disgaea really is, but even then, the fact that they gave you as many tools as they did to, oh, hey, that was our destination, great.
Yeah, no, that's why I said last episode. I finally figured out at the end through the hint system that we could take the bus stop in the middle of nowhere, which is in completely the wrong direction, to go to the strip mall, which is on the east side of the continent.
So, Rory, tell us more about you. I don't think we know all that much.
We're back to the Velvet Room.
Well, you know, this might actually make for a
Rory.
nice change of
I'm a
pace.
kid with a dead sister.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks, Rory.
Wow. Dark, dude. Do you, have a job or any hobbies?
Yeah, I work at this shitty video store, Planet VHS. We can get you any movie 6 to 12 months after its continental US release on VHS.
This is one of these things
So
where
basically, we suck.
I feel like they
Any
originally
plans
wrote
for
this as Planet
college or
DVD
anything?
or Planet Blu-ray and then just
I
sort
don't
of
really know
backdated
college.
it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, this
Why do you say
game
that?
doesn't really
Well,
demonstrate a
after my
very
sister
strong
died, my parents
commitment
aren't
to
really
its
themselves.
setting.
They've had a rocky relationship as it is. So
Here's the thing
think
I
if
have
left,
about
everything
this
would fall
characterization
apart.
for Rory, case in point.
That's not your job.
So he describes
You don't
himself
have
as
to
a
keep your
scene
parents
kid,
together.
right?
Right.
Let's talk about the hallmarks of
I don't know
sceendom.
if that's true.
When
I
did
feel like I have
Hawthorne
a
Heights come out?
responsibility to them.
I forget.
2003, 2004-ish?
Do either of you have
Same with
jobs?
Panic at the Disco, same with, like,
I used to deliver
My
papers,
Chemical
but
Romance,
it's nothing
right?
Lately.
was scene
Now
really
my
a
dad pays
thing
me to
before
proofread the
that?
things he writes.
I mean, I think in an absolute sense,
Oh yeah. And
he might
Alex
not
is
be
unemployed.
referring to the same kind of
I
scene,
might be able to
but
get you a
there
job
was
at
almost
Planet
certainly a
VHS.
scene in the 90s.
No, I mean, there were many scenes in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Whether he
no,
represents it
I'm
is still the part in dispute, I think.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying is,
I'm not really.
this game just feels like a 2019 game.
Didn't you tell me on the way that your mom lost her job
Or
and you
at the
needed
very
to help
least,
her out?
you know, it would make sense to be mid-2000s.
I think she was just
Yeah.
saying that.
You know, back when scene
But
was a
I
thing.
know she wouldn't
Yeah,
want to
and
push
there
me
was
into
the
anything I'm
whole
not ready
economic
for.
downturn and Alex's
Did you go to
particular
college?
outset on going to college
Yeah,
and
I
going to
graduated
get a
earlier
job.
This year. I have my BLA.
Did you notice that Rory said we could get you a
so
job
I know
at Plant
you do want
VHS,
that
I
job
can
at
introduce
Plant
you to the
VHS.
manager, and Alex just said, lol,
My
no.
manager has his BLA, and the night shift manager has his DMA in dance.
I feel like that's our reaction too, Michael. We're just not vocalizing it like you are.
I'll find something. I just need to hold out a bit longer till it feels right.
Oh, Alex, bless your heart.
When I moved from Frankton to Jet Set City to start college, I spent the whole bus ride.
Jet Set City, really?
19 years and realizing that
Yeah,
almost
no relation to
everything that
Jet Set
happened to me
Radio.
was pretty embarrassing. I'm not exaggerating. I didn't want to remember any of it. It was so pathetic. The more I thought about my life up to then, the more I hated myself.
So keep in
It wasn't
mind
that I
where
hadn't
we
been
are.
happy or hadn't enjoyed my high
We
school
are now-
experience.
You see a
I can
safe
recall a handful of
point
really
there,
great
right?
times.
Yes, and I
With
see that
men
you're
who
very
are
much on a
shameful,
train
painful
platform.
memories far out.
And you might think there's a safe
I
platform.
thought of how I'd been
They're
living
going to allow Diacorn to
approaching
walk
life.
around and look inside that garbage can.
So miserably
Yeah.
replaced. When I made it to college,
Well, hang
I
on
knew
to that
this was a
thought.
time for reinvention. All I needed to do was imagine the Alex I wanted to be and work towards it. Forget the old Alex.
This
Be
is
someone
the
worth
Alex
being.
you wanted to be?
Now that I'm here, floating with you, I don't know if I was approaching life right. Did any of it really matter?
You're still not,
Anyway,
though.
I got to college.
That's the thing.
Made friends with people
Okay,
I
so I
never
can
thought I'd
certainly
hang out with.
sympathize with the aspect of
Got
kind of
interested in
looking back at your
poetry.
teen years and going, yeah, I was
Started
dumb
listening
and
to
I don't
Dylan.
want to do that anymore.
Bought a
But
guitar, never really learned. I got interested in novels and music. I was in with the hip crowd. But being hip doesn't mean you have direction.
You were in with the hipster crowd.
That isn't to say some of the kids I met weren't going places, and I hear many of them did. Just not me. I was too selfish, too unoriginal, too much of a parasite feeding off everyone's cool.
so what exactly is motivating this level of self-reflection? And again, what are the chances that it's actually going to mean anything in terms of how he is characterized over the course of this story?
Michael, are you going to college?
Well, I don't know. I was kind of hoping he would just shut
Yeah,
up so I
man.
could explore the train platform, but no, they
That
just
sounds
put
so
us in another
exciting.
velvet room.
It's just scary.
Yeah.
Not the leaving home.
My-
I don't care about that. But you have
Just
4
to
years
go back to that
ensure
scene
that
though, I
you have a
can
future.
the idea of
It's a
that
lot
sort
of
of
pressure,
ennui
isn't
with your situation in
parents were kids,
college
you
and
didn't
sort
have
of
to
trying
go to
to
college.
discover who you
But in
are
10
is,
years, you'll need
you know,
your
not
master's to even be
necessarily an
considered
invalid
for a
kind of
job.
navel gazing, but
No.
and
Also scared
it's
of
arguably
debt.
something that we could see in Alex that's the most sympathetic. But
college fund?
what is this? What is this doing in
Nah,
terms of the story
they
that we're
didn't
in?
really
What
have
is
that
this
kind of money.
serving in terms of trying
did good for a
to
while,
help
but
Alex
my
move
dad's
forward as a
work hasn't
character
been going
or
so
move
well.
forward in the plot? I can't say
Do you
yet,
know what
and
you
I
wanna
find it
go for?
highly suspect because nothing about
My mom
his
said that when she was a
behavior so
kid,
far seems
mind
to
you,
be
I don't know if women
uh,
were allowed in college
seems
back
to be
then.
affected by this reflection.
You just went for whatever you wanted.
I
and the degree
think
meant
what
you
they're
were
kind of
educated,
trying to
had the
get at
qualities
was
of a
that Alex
working
was just talking a
professional.
whole bunch of bullshit, and then they casually
now,
slip in the
pick a
floating
major,
with you
get good
comment,
at it,
which is,
stick
I
to
guess,
it,
supposed to
and
imply that
maybe
this is
you'll
being
get a
told
job.
to somebody at a later date where
It's
he's, you know,
1999, and
floating
the
in the
economy
soul
is
space or
terrible
some
compared to my parents'
some sort
day.
of bullcrap like that, right? That's
Right.
kind of what I
Imagine
got
it'll be like
with
for
it.
our kids
And
if
I
we don't get
realize
our
I may
shit
have
together.
misspoke slightly. I wasn't really talking about
Yeah,
that
it's
reflection
scary,
affecting his
but
character
you need to
going
face
forward
that
from
reality
now, but
eventually.
rather other instances in the past where
What do you
we've
lean
said,
towards?
oh, he's reflected on some kind of failing in
Computers,
his life
probably.
and then
Maybe I'll
made a
make computer
concerted
games.
effort to move forward from that
Can't imagine
in
they'll have a
terms
major
of,
for it.
you know,
But I'm good at math, and I hear
the
making games is all
dialogue
math.
with the 5 Alex tribunal inside his
Hey,
head.
When Japanese
Or-
developers make games, do they program in Japanese?
The answer to that is no.
Huh.
There's assembly
I have no idea.
for that sort
I
of
wonder
thing.
if they have to translate programming language.
They don't. All programming is done in English, unless you're working in pure binary. Then you just have ones and zeros.
How do you know this?
Anyway,
Oh
The
yeah. I've
point I was
tried
trying to
making
make
games
earlier is
before. I
that
used Objective-C.
Alex navel gazes a lot, and whether
It's
it means
pretty
anything
fun.
to the story
Not great
or
at
his
making
characterization,
graphics,
or
but
whether
anyway.
it doesn't, is highly unknown from
That's
one
awesome.
moment to the
You'll have
next.
to show us something
And
sometime.
consequently, I can't really
Yeah,
see any scene
maybe.
like that as anything other
Most of
than
them
suspect
suck,
as
but
to
I'm getting
whether
better
it's
at it.
actually going to matter in the long run.
What? Do you like?
That's kind of my
learn from a
impression
book?
of it as well, and I'm glad you picked
Yeah,
up on
I got
that.
this 5,000
I'm fine
page
with
book on
navel gazing if it
programming.
means that something changes about it
Every
going
day I
forward,
try and
because
use some of
in
the
a
examples.
character study piece, you generally see
wanna
how the
get to the
character
point
grows
where I
and
don't need to
changes,
check
right?
the book
Like
if
that's
I wanna
part
have
of the appeal
features.
of it and getting you invested in that character. But Alex has had so many opportunities where we've said he's navel gazing. Maybe we'll finally get to see
Oh, I
him
think that's
change
strip
for
mall up
real,
there.
and he just never
Let's go get something
has.
to eat a burger joint before hitting out the record store.
Yeah.
He's kind of lost his credibility.
You know what it actually reminds me of in a small way? You also play
What's
pen and
that?
paper RPGs, right?
I've been known to spin a
A
yarn in D20.
Yeah, sounds about right. In that same vein, it's like when you create a character for a story like that, you're usually sort of going in with some expectation of what the character's like, a few general points of personality, maybe if you're very dedicated, sort of how they fit into the greater setting that they're a part of. But at the same time, aspects of their characterization could be maybe a little bit foggy. You know, you don't
I
quite
remember
know
sitting at
who
the
they
burger
are as a
joint
character
wondering why I
until
was
you
more like
play a
Rory.
few times, and your
Michael,
relationships
concerned about the
maybe
future.
don't always
Rory,
quite
someone
work
who has
out the
something
way
to
you think
aspire
they
to.
would, and so certain aspects
The
of their
time I told
characterization
myself
get
I had
added in or
purpose.
dropped
was
in a way
looking
that
for
would be
Semi
slightly
Park.
haphazard in any other piece of
I was going to
fiction.
find her,
Alex, to me,
save
kind
her.
of reads a bit like that
Something
because
was going to happen.
he's indulging in all of this
Somehow
internal
there would be
monologue and
meaning in all
thinking
this
in a way that would
craziness.
sort of make sense for a D&D character whose
So, how about that
characterization
economy?
is being developed on an ad hoc basis as the story goes on.
Yeah.
But
Really
the
seems
fact
like the world
that
is
it's
going
not
to
really
shit,
in
doesn't it?
control of the player of this game, and
First Alex loses
as such,
Sammy, I lose Carrie,
doesn't quite
the
fit within a
economy
more
is
traditional
tanking.
narrative is part of what's making him
Future
kind of
looks bleak in
unappealing.
1999, boys.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about
Must
that,
be
but you're
Y2K.
absolutely right.
What's Y2K?
It's some computer virus or something that's going to destroy modern society at midnight
They're
on New
actually name-dropping the thing.
Roll
Not
credits.
exactly. Computers only count
If
the last
only.
2 digits of a number, so they don't know the difference between 2000 or 1900. This will cause various problems with dates and finances, and will probably cause a big mess. People all over the world are panicking.
This is actually a pretty fair
2000
assessment
rolls around,
of what
all the computers
Y2K
will crash
was.
and nuclear
It seems
bombs will
really
go off or
crazy
something.
in retrospect. You know, my
Like, is this really
explanation
going to
of
happen?
what Y2K was came from that
Probably.
one
I don't
Family
know.
Guy episode
I
after
think
the
I'd kind of like
fact.
to see it happen.
Fair enough. I don't think
But-
I was aware of any sort
Definitely
of
would shake
panic as
things up.
such outside of maybe a King of the Hill episode.
What's wrong with you guys?
I
That
was a
would cause
kid.
serious
You and I
problems.
were both kids.
Yeah.
This is crazy. How have I never heard of this before?
The next big
Probably
scare is in
because you live under a
2037.
posh little rock and only hear about the things your
We're
mommy
talking
wants
about
you to hear
overflow
about.
glitches in the thread.
Screw
I
you,
think
man.
somebody was actually. Yeah, Nidoking was talking about it.
Maybe that's why everything is going to shit. Maybe the world will end in the year 2000. We'll all die.
Yeah,
and
it's
our
also a
souls
case,
will
though,
float up
where,
into soul space.
based on what he was saying, the Y2K
you
scare,
imagine?
while maybe true of some certain aspects of
could,
programming, was
but I didn't
really
like
kind
it.
of overblown in terms of not really
Do you
fundamentally
really think
understanding
Y2K could
how
have something
computers
to do with
calculate
Sammy's
dates and
disappearance?
information. So,
Well, yeah, absolutely.
No, I mean,
It's one of
that's a
these
computer
things
problem,
where,
right?
you know, uninformed people
then
reporting
again,
on
The world
a
does feel
specific
like it's falling
situation
apart.
can make it kind of
All that war
alarmist.
and whatnot overseas.
which actually,
What wars?
in a somewhat more interesting version
Oh,
of this
there are
narrative,
few,
would
like
almost
the
tie
insurgency
into the
in
themes
Ogaden,
we've seen thus
Nepalese
far,
Civil
because
War, Republic
well,
of the Congo Civil
really
War,
we're going on
Kosovo
this
War,
adventure as a result
Eritrean
of something
Ethiopian
that
War,
was
Sierra Leone
copied out
Civil
of
War,
a
and
real
the
life
war for our
conspiracy,
minds fought every
and
day
that
in the
extensively
newspapers.
references websites and
I had no idea there were
publications
so
that
many
dealt
wars
with
happening. What are they
conspiracies
fighting
like
over?
it in the early
Probably
90s
would
internet
like to have more
culture.
wars.
So, again,
Isn't that
if
what
this
war
were
is usually
done in a
about?
somewhat more
War
interesting
for
fashion, I
war's
feel
sake?
like there's an opportunity to deliver a message there about how information
Jeez, I used
gets
to read the
filtered
newspaper
through
in
various
college, but
unreliable
maybe to
sources
be
and
honest, in
creates this
1999.
strange kind of myth
Okay,
that
enough of this
ultimately
gossip chatter.
becomes
shall
popular
we
just
proceed to
because
the
of
record
how
shop?
absurd it is.
Or just the
Shall we,
wider
shall?
idea of how
Let us
whoever spins the loudest narrative is the one who eventually controls what society thinks overall. And I would say that that's something that more modern games have touched on, especially in the age of social media and information. One sort of recent game that touched on that very well was a game called Orwell, if you've ever heard of that.
Enlighten me.
It's a game about being a special investigator who goes on people's social media profiles to figure out what they're thinking. And you basically track somebody's digital history and draw conclusions about
Hang
whether or
on,
not
do you
they
have
were
this
guilty of
record?
a certain crime.
It's called Mystical
Interesting.
Ultima LP Legend.
Yeah, it came out on Steam a couple of years ago.
Did you check the
Yeah.
racks? What we have is what we
Well,
have.
again, I feel as though the game
Oh,
almost
yeah,
started
I
touching
did.
on this theme, or rather, this game
Can you
did,
look in your computer
back
or
when we
something?
were first trying to post about
Fine.
Sammy,
Give me a
and
minute.
Alex started to go off on a monologue that really didn't lead to anything, but that did contain the comment about
We
how
don't have it.
his version
We
of
have
the
another
story or
story
his attempt
nearby.
to focus on
They'll probably
what
have
he
it.
knew
Yeah,
to
they
be
have
the
more of a
facts of what had
selection.
happened to Sammy were ultimately drowned out in a,
Okay,
in a
thanks.
deluge of people posting
you
about
wait
their
for the
various
bus
spiritual
outside,
experiences
first stop is a
or
flagship
encounters
store.
with the paranormal
Only a
that just
15-minute
turned out to
ride.
be more popular.
You're absolutely right. He did mention that.
Well, I feel like there might almost be a theme or a point to approaching a narrative on those terms specifically, but it's, again, just one plot thread in a huge interweaving and at times completely disconnected network of plot threads that make up this game, where ultimately I can't really say with any confidence whether it's going to take that theme in any interesting direction or just forget about it until suddenly they decide to make it relevant again.
Well, here's the way that you write it if you're a competent writer, or at least if you actually draw conclusions based on the various things that Alex has said. I kind of see Alex as this individual who, you know, he's talked in the past about being drowned out, like this whole situation with Sammy. Right. I think about that and I say it would actually make a frightening amount of sense for somebody who feels that they're consistently drowned out by people being louder than them, or people interrupting him with his own experiences with theirs, and saying, I need to be the most opinionated jackass possible. It's not hard to draw that connection, you know?
That's actually, there's a very intriguing possibility there.
That's kind of how I'm reading Alex in the context of those comments.
You asked me 6 months ago. I'd have laughed at you.
Holy shit, has it been 6 months?
But now that I've seen so much strangeness...
Well, this game started in April, right?
Yes. Yes, it did.
I don't quite get that lady's tan line, but okay.
I noticed that too. Alright, a new place. And we get some new music.
It's a little summery. I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's very beach episode kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see what this place has to offer.
Hey,
you want to play some soccer?
Well,
no.
We're not going to get to because this game is going to do weird things with the physics of that ball.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, I'm actually kind of surprised. The only
Notice
reason
that Alex is not actually touching the ball.
Nice. The only reason I point that out is that I believe there's also a soccer ball in Frankton that responds quite wildly to Alex's attempts to walk into it.
Oh yeah, didn't I glitch it out at one point?
I believe you did.
I forgot about that. Alright, let's see what the biggest record store in the state has to offer. To be fair, New Jersey is kind of a small state.
Well, pretty populous and neighboring to one of the most well-known states.
Michael and Rory are both sitting in their special areas, so I'm sure we're walking into a cutscene or something.
Hey man, I'm looking for this record. You've probably never heard of it.
Also, isn't this the guy who was in the other record stores before?
Legend. I have the
No,
jacket, but
those were all the same guy. He was a guy with long blonde hair. You don't remember him?
The internet?
Yeah, but there was a different guy who was manning the store before, who always had that joke about how he would jump backwards and then there'd be a splash of water behind him.
I'm guessing it wasn't.
Oh, hey, you're right. I think this is that guy.
See, I've been paying attention.
Good for you.
Somebody posted a photo of this record jacket, and they've been asking people if they have a copy.
I'm just having a slight existential crisis now about the fact that I'm paying attention to this game, but, you know.
How do you know about Semi?
I go on the forum too, obviously.
No, don't put your hands there. I was trying to read what was on the shirt.
For a while. Aren't you the guy who posted the photos of her last known location?
Okay, I know the second part is Sisterhood of
I had no idea anyone around
Spring.
here even knew about Semi.
Huh. All right.
The first part, hold on.
Nice to meet you.
I'm not going to let you pause the video to read it.
No, you're not,
I'm
but
out.
I'm pretty sure it was like,
This guy here's Rory.
Alright, great.
yeah, okay, I think that is
So
just
you're
straight up
looking
Magical
for
Girls Sisters of
mystical
Spring.
LP, huh?
That's what that shirt says.
Sorry, we don't got it.
I could be off on one or two of the characters. My kanji is
But
terrible.
I do know where you can get it. It's gonna sound a bit odd.
Well,
Hell,
I
you
think
know
this
what?
is the first guy
I'll
who's
come with
actually helpful.
I own this stupid place. I can take a break whenever I want.
Yeah, we're down. Where do we go?
There's this old guy. He's on a mountain south of here. He's a real chill guy, a bit out there, but he's got the biggest record collection on the East Coast.
Didn't you know, Mode Wondershot?
bound to
Mystical Ultima LP
let me just grab
legend
my
was
seat.
forged in the fires of Mount Record.
Chandra! Come here a minute!
Well, I certainly missed that detail as I was busy trying to translate in my head. But
What's up, Claudio?
Yeah,
I'm gonna run the miles
gotta
for
keep
a
up
bit.
with the plot, Mode
Wanna come with
Wondershot.
us?
There's gonna be a quiz later.
Yeah, hold
All
on.
right.
Let me get James to watch the front.
So, how do we get there?
It's a bit of a hike, but it's a nice walk. Head to the mountain south of here. He has a little cottage on top. Can't miss it.
okay.
So here's Chandra. We already got a skill for her. Also, Claudio turns into the guy from the other record stores.
Such as it is. Also, does this mean we can now put someone else other than Rory in the party?
I guess so. We have a whole grand total of 5 people. We're spoiled for choice.
What can I say? This game, despite everything, may be looking up any moment now.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a terrifying thought.
Yeah, I'm getting a little dizzy up here.
Does that mean that we can finally put somebody more useful than Rory in the party? I wonder what Chandra and Claudio do.
I have a feeling we're going to find out next time.
I suppose we are.